Spooky season is coming up, and you might be tempted to run a horror one-shot or an episode in your long-running campaign. So, just in time to prepare for that wonderful session, I'm not only going to go over what attributes your horror game should have, but also go over some of my favourite horror TTRPGs to learn what they do best and see how you can learn from them. Also, first of all, just to rustle up some feathers somewhat, I want to go over what game you are planning on running. Obviously, I know, if you're watching this, if you're a TTRPG content enjoyer, you're probably looking for more ways to enjoy and play D&D, but I'm here to say that maybe you should reconsider this when looking for a horror TTRPG, and in fact, looking for other kinds of TTRPGs. Despite what other TTRPG or D&D YouTubers or content creators might be saying to you, I do not think that D&D should be used to play horror. To clarify, I don't think D&D should be used if you actually intend to scare or horrify your players for a good number of reasons. While there are scary monsters in D&D and other fantasy TTRPG like Dragonbane and Pathfinder, they're not tailored to a TTRPG horror experience. Each game on the shelf and other beautiful TTRPGs that you'll find are tailored towards specific experiences and do it well. Unlike using D&D for a genre, a type of play that it's not intended to replicate. There are those online, both players, GMs, and popular people online who say that D&D can accomplish anything. Anything you want to do, from family drama to horror to anything that you want to create, D&D can achieve it. But that just isn't the case. Or at least, should I say, it's no more able to achieve that than any other game on the shelf. The only sort of deviations I would say would be maybe the likes of Microscope, I guess, or Kingdom Maker, games that don't have a first-person you play a character sort of feel, because D&D is intended towards fantasy, superhero badassery, fighting monsters, and not a sense of fear and horror. You're not supposed to be scared while playing D&D, or at least that's not the intention going into it. The reason all the characters have dark vision is because, well, more than half the species can see in the dark, which means that when you go into a dungeon, they're not going to be that scary, because all you have to fear is, what, gelatinous cubes and traps? But apart from that, there's no creeping dread of the darkness looming around you. That's why people play Shadow Dark, because, yeah, it's a dungeon crawl with darkness as a main focus. A lot of D&D has been stripped back, so it's not supposed to be scary. You're supposed to feel like a fantasy superhero, which isn't very good for horror. I'm not saying D&D's bad or it's ill-fitting for everything. Don't take it out of context. What I'm saying is D&D is intended for its own thing. The designers created D&D to achieve this goal, not every goal. There's nothing in D&D that supports a horror game experience. The mechanics in D&D don't fortify this horror game experience. There's nothing that happens in the mechanics that enforces a horror experience. It's made for its specific thing, which is just living out a life of an adventurer until you fight a monster, then you go into combat, then you come back out, then downtime, then this sort of rinse and repeat sort of cycle, and not horror. And to clarify, you can have spooky stuff in your D&D games. I do this all the time. I homebrew a bunch of horrific stuff to encounter in my D&D games. I'm running Grim Hollow at the moment. They've seen a spider lady give birth to a bunch of you can do horrific stuff with D&D, but visuals is not quite enough as the game being fit for the horror experience and allowing players to actually... Well, actually, no. We'll get onto that later. The reason I'm bringing all this up is because there is a main flaw with D&D when trying to translate it into a horror game. Not there's a flaw with D&D in general. There's a flaw with trying to use D&D for horror, and that is vulnerability. D&D is not a game where your characters feel particularly vulnerable without quite heavy DM intervention. In 5e and 4e and 3, when did it begin? Who knows, but the games have only become more badass or powerful or just creep as you went on. You have 5e now, as in the newest version, and it's even more badass. You've got the monk going from punch guy to, oh, I start combat with my own second wind now? Excellent. The characters are just getting more badass to give this fantasy superhero badass feel and not vulnerability. And also, the three pillars of horror in general are horror, terror, and gross out. These are three different things. They might sound similar, but they're three different things. And if you describe something as gross to a D&D player, like a spider lady giving birth to a bunch of spider babies, that is a gross out moment, but it's not going to scare your players like a other horror game can, because your characters don't really feel vulnerable unless, like, they're level 1 or level 0 kind of homebrew. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Your characters don't feel vulnerable because the game you are playing, Dungeons and Dragons, with level 1 wizards having a sweep of spells, fighters having big old swords and big old plates of armor, it's not meant for your characters to feel vulnerable. Because the game is intended, and the players kind of know this going in, it's a game about fighting monsters, coming out on top, and if the DM wanted to throw a fight at me right at the beginning of a session, and it was tough enough to die, like other horror games do, then it'd be a very quick session, DM. Is that what you want to do? So, instead, it's more likely that, yeah, we're going to survive to the very end, kind of get roughed up a bit, but we're not vulnerable. Vulnerability has a massive effect on the fear factor of a horror session. If your characters feel like they can rest, recuperate, defend themselves quite easily, then it's not scary. Think of the likes of the Resident Evil games. Yes, you can have characters who wield guns, but you have games like James Sutherland, who are incredibly bad at fighting and swings a board of wood around like it's going to give him a hernia with each swing. Meanwhile, you have games where, oh yeah, we have Chris Redfield with a gun, but even then, when the zombies start coming at you, you don't feel like, haha, I'm a badass who can kick the... You are sat there thinking, how am I going to use these bullets very effectively? Even in games where you have weapons and ways to defend yourself, they are tailored specifically to still have you engage with a survival horror atmosphere, and not just something like Hi-Fi Rush, where you're just kicking ass all the way through all these enemies. And again, D&D not really good for horror, but if you want to incorporate, like, I don't know, like dancing skeletons, spooky, scary sort of stuff, then yeah, you can use whatever game you want. Vulnerability being quite key to the whole experience is insanely evident if you actually look at any game that is supposed to be a horror game, like Call of Cthulhu, Candela Obscura, Vassin, Mothership, Obscure, Liminal Horror, etc. Your characters in those games have incredibly low HP and not much in the way of defense. Vulnerability is present in all these horror games, and it's not really present in D&D. You might think, well, I can do that by just increasing the health of the enemy. If they can just pink away at it and, oh no, it's not dying, then that's the same thing, right? But is it? Because if you have a game where you have a wizard with spells using burning hands and catapulting the whole person, and they're just not working, and it's a full game with a big combat system ready to let you engage in a full tactical combat suite, then suddenly, when things aren't working, it's not really scary as much as it is just frustrating. The mechanics and feel of D&D just does not suit horror, and I know that all it'll take is for you to watch one video of a YouTuber that has like 400,000 subscribers to say the opposite thing and say D&D is good for horror, and suddenly that's the advice that is used across the board, but I don't know. I hope you can just make your own decision. So if I'm going to say that, what mechanics am I going on about that do enforce the idea of playing a horror game? For this, I want to cite two games that not only illustrate perfectly what I'm talking about, but also are just great games in general, and those are Call of Cthulhu, which you've probably heard of, but also a game called Obscure. Both of these games not only champion this idea of vulnerability in your horror game, but also they put your players into a death spiral. Death spirals have been given a bad rap. Whenever you hear about death spirals, it's always in a negative context because it makes characters suffer more, that the more they suffer, and this inevitable death. That's not good in the context of D&D. Weird. Another thing that in the context of D&D, it doesn't fit this experience, but it's perfect for horror. So, in Call of Cthulhu, your character will typically be quite vulnerable because you normally have HP in the range of like 8 to 12, while things like a shotgun can deal anything between 1d6 to 4d6. Your character is quite weak in the face of actual weaponry. But the cherry on top, the pièce de résistance, the most beautiful thing to lend itself for horror is the look and sanity mechanics. Call of Cthulhu is a skill-based game, meaning that you're going to be rolling a d100 to try roll underneath a skill or a stat, a number that you have, ranging between 1 to 100 because you're rolling a d100, and luck is just another one of these numbers. You roll 3d6 times it by 5, that's your luck, as in your maximum luck. And whenever you want to use your luck, it's typically because your character has failed a roll. You need to get a 30 to dodge out the way, but you rolled a 46, and you don't want to be hit by this gun or this attack or whatever it is, so you spend 16 from your total pool of luck to reduce that 46 down to a 30. You succeeded, you dodged out the way, now reduce your luck by 16. So, if you're ever prompted at any point to make a luck roll, and you've been using that luck, diminishing it slowly until you have a small pool of luck, and suddenly roll a d100 against 18 luck, that's an 18% chance of survival, when you're going to get a whole rock drop on you. So not only are you vulnerable because you have a small amount of HP, but the tools that you have to survive in order to keep succeeding your rolls, they keep diminishing. And you don't get them back if you just rest. Then there's the main attraction, the main draw if you're going to play Call of Cthulhu, and that is your sanity. Sanity, just like your luck and your HP, I guess, is another number that changes over the course of the game. And the reason I bring this up is because the other stats typically don't change. Meanwhile, your luck, your sanity, and your HP will probably diminish over the course of the game. If you have 60 sanity and you roll a d100 and get 59, great, you succeeded your sanity roll. But unlike luck where you can spend it to increase your chances of survival, sanity, if you roll and you fail on your sanity, you lose sanity. Depending on what you're actually encountering, it might be a horribly mangled corpse, it might be a weird occurrence, or it might be seeing Cthulhu himself. So, we have your health, which goes down if you take damage. Ow, I've been shot, my HP goes down, and my character sheet says that, oh, I must be feeling weaker or more in pain now. But your sanity is a number that you can't get back, at least not over the course of a horror one-shot. Unlike your health where you can first aid and maybe rest during the session, sanity, that keeps going down and down. And the more that you fail, the less percentage chance that you have to succeed. So that means as you fail, you increase the chance to fail again. So yes, your character is vulnerable in these games. Your health goes down as you take damage, which is hard to get back up. Your luck, you can spend it, which means that you have less of it later. And if you need to make a luck roll, you have less luck to actually succeed with. And with your sanity, it keeps going down the more you lose sanity, increasing the chance of failure as you go on. You start to have a worse time as you go on. And what is that feeling called? Rising tension. Feelings of safety, rest, recuperation, these things ruin tension. Tension needs to build over the course of your horror game, and that only happens if the mechanics in it ensure that your options start to slowly run out over the course of the session. And before anyone says, I know that rising tension isn't unique to horror games. Any game can have rising tension. It's something that GMs and DMs can manufacture in any game, but normally in most games, rising tension is something that you as the DM and the GM have to manufacture. You have to. For example, when you write down in your notes that, oh yes, when the players keep playing and the session goes on, that's when the killer starts to show up more, that's when things start to go worse, when you get closer towards the scarier location, that's when things get harder, etc. However, games that are geared towards being a horror game, such as Call of Cthulhu, as we've discussed, with mechanics that are specifically tailored towards a horror experience, your luck and your sanity betray you the further you go on. Your mechanics make it so that as things go on, tension automatically builds, and it has to because your mechanics, your luck, your sanity decrease, making it so that your chance of survival decreases over time. Your options diminish. Your chance of having a good time is going down, meanwhile the tension rises inversely proportional to that. And yes, in these games, the Game Master should be making things more tense as you go along. They should be increasing the tension, they should be giving more scares, revealing more on their side of the screen, but also, on your side of the screen, the mechanics in these games are tailored towards horror, so they make it so that on their end, while the GM is preparing what to do next, they are increasing the tension for you constantly by having your options diminish. These horror mechanics make it so that the one thing that connects you to the game, aka your character sheet, and your dice can't be relied on as much as the game goes on. Go ahead and spend that luck. Oh, you lost sanity, who cares, right? I mean, we're here, in amidst the office, we're in a speakeasy, we're having a good time, who cares? It's only when things happen later, when after all that time your sanity is slowly crept down and you've used up all that luck, that's when things go bad and you don't have those fail-safes anymore. Another game that does this beautifully is a game that I mentioned before, Obscure by Sons of Naught Games, the same person who made Groton, which I talked about on this channel as well, which you can watch if you click here. The mechanic that I want to talk about is incredibly simple, and while this sounds strange to say, it's something that I also do in the likes of Sanctum and Blaster. I like that sort of mechanic, and it's here in this horror game, so let's talk about it. Question: when does your character typically die in a TTRPG? When they run out of health, right? So, what if both your health and the system, points, and resources that help you succeed, kind of like luck from Call of Cthulhu, were tied to the same pool? When you roll for anything in Obscure, you're going to be rolling 2d6, adding them together, and trying to beat a number set by the GM. And if you fail the roll, oh no, you failed. But you could, if you wanted to succeed, spend some of your energy points. Your character has a certain amount of energy points, that is their health, their ability to keep fighting on, etc. But you can use some of those energy points on rolls which are called effort rolls, so you're putting more energy into these effort rolls, putting more effort in, but as a result, you diminish your own energy. Your energy points diminish, which means that you're more likely to die if things start to go very badly later, but in order to succeed, you could spend some of those energy points to increase the chances of success on your roll. And I'm not going to go through every single specific instance of the mechanics because truly I want you to buy this game. It's so well put together, so nicely presented, it's simple, it's great, it's so close to the Halloween season. Just pick up this game, do yourself a favour and treat yourself to this wonderfully presented and really interesting game. It's analog horror if you like that, I love that, so it's right up my alley. And also, just as a little teaser for you, why you should get this book, you thought this was just a camera? Nope. The full book is a wonderfully put together, and also there's a little secret for this book that you can look into. There's lots of secrets in every single piece of art, which is wonderful to look through, but buy this book, and I'm not going to show you because I want you to see it for yourself. Buy this book, and here's a hint. Thumb through this book. Just thumb through this book and have a look to see if you can find a secret. Anyway, yeah, just buy this book, it's fantastic, it's excellent for what I'm talking about, and it's just a great game. And all this talk of energy points sounds quite similar to the luck points in the likes of Call of Cthulhu, but for one main distinction. While luck helps you succeed more as you go along and use them up on your rolls, it does the same thing, but it actually ties into your health pool, which means that the game becomes a tense game of choice. How much do you want to hurt yourself in order to succeed this roll at the risk of a monster later hurting you even more because you have much less energy points to sort of brunt all the sort of hurt that you can experience later. So, you can see how both these games are specifically tailored with mechanics to have this feeling of things getting worse as you go on, rising tension and vulnerability, because the resources that you have to survive will slowly dwindle as you keep playing, as things at the same rate get worse and worse. Also, as a side note, Call of Cthulhu has a beautiful mechanic in the form of pushing your roll, which means that if you fail a roll, oh no, what do you do? Well, here's what you can do. Instead of spending luck to diminish all your luck, you could take a bit of a risk. Instead of securing your chance of success with luck, you could go, how about I try to roll again? You can roll again, doing something more risky, like for example, you want to see something? Oh, I can't quite see it. Well, in that case, what if you leaned over the banister a bit more? Maybe leaned off the watchtower a bit more? You make the roll, and if you succeed, then fair enough. You succeed as you intended. If you fail, after doing something a bit more risky, then, well, you're going to suffer the consequences as things get much worse. And where all these mechanics intersect beautifully is the fact that on the GM side, they have all the power. They can throw all these scares at you. Meanwhile, unlike other games, in these horror games, you as the player are given the chance to increase the tension for yourself. Make things worse for yourself. The game is put into your hands. I'm going to sit here and throw the adventure at you, but it's up to you to either succeed or make things much more tense. And I, as the GM, didn't need to do any of that. We're both creating a story by increasing the danger, vulnerability, and tension of the scenario. And I could sit here and go over everything, like every specific mechanic, but honestly, these are the main things that you need to sort of move forward with this idea of vulnerability and securing a chance of rising tension for your players. These things make the horror experience go from good to fantastic. It's where a game that is just a general sort of experience, a one-page TTRPG, D&D, everyone is John, that sort of thing, goes from, yeah, this is dice rolling and we are doing things and we can spice it with some scares, to a game that is tailored and beautifully crafted towards making things a horror experience. If hearing all this made you think, I want to do something with horror now, let's go over real quick on how to build your own session and mystery. First of all, start with a hook. The players encounter something strange. Maybe they're policemen who come across a strange murder. Maybe they're 1920s gentlemen who are contacted by an eccentric relative. Give the players the tiniest shred of mystery to inspire them to investigate further while they're in a place of safety, because this state of safety gives them the confidence to proceed. Then take all of the stages of the mystery and spread them out evenly so you encounter them slowly. I've made videos in the past on how to create your own mysteries, which you can watch here, but in brief, create an entire story of what happened from beginning to end, and then show the players the end result, the end point, the body they find, the crashed ship they find, whatever. And then drip feed your players the least damning evidence first, leading up until they find more and more evidence that is more and more damning, so they can figure out what happened here. But by the time they do find the more damning evidence, that is when they are in the thick of it, and it's too late to turn back. Not only should you present your evidence this way, but you should also present your scares this way. Don't start with an eldritch horror or strange analog monster. Start with what they've done first. And it seems like, oh, this could have been done by a man who is murdered by another man, etc. But then as you go on, you find more evidence. Was it a knife that stabbed him? What was that strange residue? Was that spit? Did he try to bite it to death? What could have happened? And it's only as you go on and find more and more that you realise that something strange might be going on. And don't be afraid to have multiple reveals. Maybe you do find that, oh yeah, it was a man that did this. Fair enough, we found him, we captured him, but only when you capture him and get him in binds does he then start to convulse and vibrate and his head turns into a huge tentacle to reveal that, oh, it was actually the proboscis of this strange creature that we've now caught, but now we're in the room with, and we locked ourselves in the room with it to make sure he wouldn't escape, and now we're trapped in here with it. Oh shit! There are so many games that you can pick up that do horror well, and that's because they were made with horror in mind. The GM can present a mystery and show the players what scary things are happening, meanwhile, the players, while playing, end up doing scary things to themselves just by using the mechanics. Check out Vaesen, Mothership, Candela Obscura, Call of Cthulhu, Obscure, Liminal Horror, and even the likes of Dread if you want to see a practice of building tension. Literally. Vulnerability, death spirals, and rising tension. These tools elevate your game from a good horror game to a fantastic and quite horrifying horror experience. And if you want to try horror, try one of these games. You don't have to be scared and think, oh god, it's spending more money on more books, spending all this money, like, oh, buy all of Chaosium's books and spend £80 on the Mothership Premium Box Edition. Well, you don't have to do that. You can look at the likes of Obscure and Liminal Horror. These are games that are more rules light and they're more less known, I suppose. I mean, who's heard of Obscure? I didn't until I looked at Sons of North shop and found this game and I fell in love with it. You can pick up games like this and they are fantastic for creating a really creepy feeling at the table. I mean, if you look at big games, like for example, Vaesen is a fantastic game, but I wouldn't say it's as scary as Obscure. So in that regard, if you want scares, you don't have to scare yourself in draining your wallet like the beast in this book that will drain your EP. Thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, then please leave a like, leave a comment, tell me down below what are your favourite horror games, and what are you intending to do for this Halloween season. If you liked this video and you'd like to see more like it and more games to check out, then click the playlist on screen. I love you all, and I'll see you next time.